Hey guys, Marsingan here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. And so today we are going to be doing the team building guide for Terrifying Conquerors Super Battle Road that comes out on Global. Basically it'll be up within like 12 hours. I don't know exactly what time this video is going to go up. But it should be out at the normal release time for events on Global, which is 10:30 PM PST, which is like 7:30 in the morning for me in the UK. So I might actually stream this because I was planning to stream the Cell EZA, which comes out like an hour and a half later. So I could do like one big long stream. But either way, keep an eye out on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. And whatever I end up doing, maybe I'll see you there for some of the live parts. So the interesting part about this stage coming out now for Global, so quickly after its release on JP, is the fact that obviously on Global we do not have Captain Ginyu. So this is one of those rare occasions where the stage is actually going to be more difficult on Global than it is on JP, because we're missing Captain Ginyu, who not only is a fantastic unit himself, but has a 200% leader skill. And obviously JP, I'm pretty sure when this stage came out on JP, they also had the EZA for Turles, who is ridiculously good. I can't remember if Raditz was out already, who isn't great, but actually, yeah, Turles was part of his celebration, right? So if they had his EZA, they must have had Raditz as well. So yeah, there's a few things missing when it comes to Global for the Terrifying Conquerors category. But have no fear, as always, I am here to do a team building guide. I will go through my top picks and my honourable mentions, as I always do. And like I always say, if there's any units you think I missed out on or should have talked more about, let me know down below in the comment section. And of course, if you do find this guide helpful at all, do smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, starting off straight away, we have STR Cooler, who is the Terrifying Conquerors 170 leader. I imagine for most people he'll be the go-to choice, because obviously he covers everybody in the category. When there are 2 or more enemies, he supports Terrifying Conquerors, so obviously good for Super Battle Road. He lowers attack on Super, which is very useful. He's getting a little bit outdated now, so obviously he can start to take quite a bit of damage. You ideally, if you are going to use him, probably want to use him as an off-rotation support unit and target the enemy for attack lowering that is going to be attacking him. Because the one thing to point out when we look at the stages, so the first fight is against 2 Namekians, so there's no pure or hybrid Saiyans. The second fight we have Gohan, so we have a hybrid Saiyan who is on Goku family. That's relevant for some other units as well. And then the final stage, we have the Kais, essentially. So any Saiyan buff units are not going to be super helpful in this stage. Obviously the units can still be good, but they're not going to be getting all of those buffs. So we're not going to get the early transformation for Cooler unless it's in the second fight. So you could prioritize leaving Gohan alive and then transform Cooler to mop up the fight, but you're only going to be able to do it in that second one. So next up we have the LR Turles army. They have a leader skill for 130% and 4 key. 130% is a bit on the low side nowadays, especially considering we're in the 200% lead meta. But if it's all you've got to use, then it's all you've got to use. There is some crossover with other teams as well, though, so I don't think this guy is necessarily the best pick for the leader. However, he is going to be very good on the team. He's a Terrifying Conqueror's support for 3 key and 30% attack and defense. He can stun on super attack. He has a medium chance on the 12 key and a high chance on the 18 key. His active skill gives you a guaranteed 24 key, which can be activated when HP is 60% or less. Or starting from turn 8, but obviously in Super Battle Road you're not going to get to turn 8. The good thing about the HP restriction is there is no turn restriction, so if you go into the second or third fight on 60% or less HP, you can use this active skill straight away. And when he has the 24 key, he has attacks effective against all types and a high chance of launching an additional super. So he can definitely be very effective. His defense is definitely not the best anymore though, so you do have to be careful about that. Next up we have Bojack. So both of the units we've talked about already are on Space Traveling Warriors. Some of the other units we're going to talk about are on Time Travelers. So he can actually make a very good leader if you don't have Cooler and you don't want to use Turles. He does raise defense on Super, which is good. He buffs Space Traveling Warriors, so that's only going to be some of the team depending on how you build it. And the more enemies, the more support he gives. So definitely very good. And then he can transform on turn 4, which is usually going to be the last or second to last turn for a Super Battle Road stage. And then obviously he just becomes much more powerful offensively, but he loses that support. So it's up to you to decide, whether you think that is worth doing It depends what your rotation is going to look like, I suppose. But Bojack definitely makes a good fill-in leader. And then next up, we also have LR Full Power Freezer. So sworn enemies, you can make basically like a full Freezer team that are all on Terrifying Conquerors. There's a bunch of them that we're going to discuss. Plus also Planet Namek Saga is under his leader skill. So any of the Ginyu Force like EZA units and stuff like that. So you definitely can run LR Full Power Freezer as a leader. So definitely a solid pick as a stand-in lead. Next up we have LR, Nappa and Vegeta. So I guess you could make a leader. I didn't check, but probably not the best. They're not the best in general anyway, but they raise defense on their 12 key, which is an AoE. So if you do have them, like with dupes, link leveled, etc., their defense is not the best, but they are going to be able to do an AoE, which could be very, very helpful. You do also have the active skill, which you can use on turn 3, which gives you guaranteed dodge with this unit. So obviously in something like Super Battle Road, that can be very, very useful. They do get an attack nerf, but you can just put them in the slot where the most attacks are, pop the active skill, do an AoE. It's going to do less damage, but it's still going to hit everybody, and then you get guaranteed dodge. So definitely very, very useful. And you can get the Vegeta exchange from turn 4 if you're on low HP, and then Vegeta is a pretty powerful like one-hit target enemy. So very, very decent choice. Probably more of an honourable mention than a top pick, but they definitely can be useful. I've only just pulled my first copy of them, so I might try them out on my team. But next up we have the LR Prime Battle Freezer. Obviously he is a very solid unit, still one of the better free-to-play units. His defense is a little bit low for the current meta. You can deliberately go for his 12 key super so he raises his defense, or you can go for his 18 key super so he lowers attack. If he's only being attacked by one enemy, then I'm not sure what the difference is exactly in terms of whether lowering their attack is going to be the same as that defense buff. But obviously if he's being attacked by more than one different enemy, you probably do want to go for the 12 key so that you get the defense raise, which you do have to remember, you get 3 extra key in slot 1 or 3 and when attacking a superclass enemy. So if you want to deliberately go for the 12 key, you've got to make sure you're aware of this, because he could suddenly get 6 extra key if he's in slot 3, right? So you got to be careful about that. But he can be a solid pick as well. Next up we have Makokabara. So we are going to talk about quite a few Heroes units. If you didn't summon on Heroes at all, or haven't in the last couple of years, you definitely are missing some very solid options, because Makokabara is definitely very good. Very strong nuking style unit. He's better as a slot 2 or 3 unit because he does get a bunch of extra stats on super, but he can work in slot 1 as long as you pick up enough orbs. He's a nuking style unit. He also lowers attack on super, so that can be very good for Super Battle Road as well. So he's definitely a very good pick. If you're really low on leaders, I mean, he has a crossover lead for 130, and it is possible to make a full crossover Terrifying Conquerors team. So he's definitely a solid pick. Then we have AGL Zeno Dabura. So he does immense damage and has a high chance to stun. But he also gets, when you're facing 2 or more enemies, he gets an extra 100% defense and a 50% chance to dodge. So he can actually be pretty good. Stun chance, dodging, very, very useful effects for Super Battle Road. So he can be a decent pick. Then we have the Baby Janemba. Obviously, Baby Janemba has the dodge chance, which stacks. He gets most of his stats on super as well, so you do want him to be in slot 2 or 3. It's only when HP is 60% or above though, so if you're on low health he doesn't actually get that buff, so you have to be aware his defense is going to be a lot lower than it would normally. But he is a solid unit. Sadly no like good super attack effects, but he can be a solid defensive unit. Then we have the Golden Freezer, so you can bring AGL or Tech. Obviously AGL is the better tank. You do need to be above 40% HP, or he just basically becomes completely useless because he will not hit very hard. And if he's missing his damage reduction, his defense is non-existent, so he will take a ridiculous amount of damage. But as long as you're above 40% HP, he will be tanking everything left and right, including super attacks. The Tech one doesn't tank as well, but does hit a little bit harder. And obviously you can run both if you choose. Like if you're running the LR Full Power Freezer team, you can literally have a Golden Freezer on both rotations, like I did for the Wicked Bloodline ESBR item run. So Golden Freezer is definitely going to be very good. Even this Freezer, if he's not going to link up with anyone else, even regardless of how you've built the rest of the team, as long as he fits under the leader skill of whoever you're running as a leader, I would definitely recommend bringing AGL Golden Frieza. So next up we have Tech Raditz. So Tech Raditz is an interesting unit when it comes to Super Battle Road, because when there are 2 or more enemies, he has damage reduction as well as a guaranteed stun for 1 turn. So when you do the super attack, you're going to guaranteed stun the unit that you're attacking for that turn. But then of course, because his actual super attack effect is that he has a high chance to stun, that can proc instead, so you actually do get the proper stun for 2 turns. Sometimes it's a little bit annoying because you can't actually tell which one went off, but obviously it's still very useful. Even if you're only getting the stun for the 1 turn, it is very good. And that 50% damage reduction is nice as well. You gotta be careful when there is only 1 enemy left though, because whilst he does get a bit of extra defense, his stats are not particularly high, so just having that extra defense is not going to be good enough for him to be a solid tank. But he's very useful on the team. If you are bringing any other Saiyan units, then obviously they'll be able to link up, so very good. Next up we have the 3rd form Frieza. Obviously if you're running a bunch of Friezas or any other sworn enemies characters, then he's going to be giving them that 40% buff. He does need to multiple super for his defense to be high enough for him to actually tank hits, but for most people who don't care about no item runs, as long as you've got a defensive item active and he supers like once or twice, at least twice I would say, he's still going to be pretty good, unless it comes to obviously taking a super attack. So very good for the support. If you're not running a lot of sworn enemies units though, I probably wouldn't bother bringing him, so he's more ideal for the AGL Full Power Frieza team build. Next up we have Garlic Jr. So Garlic Jr., he's not the best defensive. His defense stat is reasonably good, but obviously in Super Battle Road he's not going to be tanking like, you know, super attacks with no items and stuff like that. But he has a medium chance to stun super class enemies. It's only for the duration of that same turn, but that is obviously pretty good. And he's an extreme class allies buffer for 3 key and 40% attack and defense, so it doesn't matter what categories. So if you've built a team where you've got like, you know, Bojack as the leader, and then you've brought Cooler, you've brought some Heroes units, you can bring Garlic Jr. and he's supporting everybody, whereas obviously like 3rd form Frieza wouldn't be supporting anyone that we just mentioned. So he can be a good unit to choose. He's got big bad bosses, so obviously that helps as well. That stun chance can be nice, even though again it is only for the 1 turn. But yeah, obviously very useful. Stunning is always very powerful in Super Battle Road. So next up we have Demon Goddess Toa. So she lowers attack and seals. The problem is her defense is not great, so you have to be very careful. She can quite easily get you killed. Like if she's being attacked 3 times in the last slot by 3 different enemies, you can only seal and attack lower one of them. Unless the other enemy is like a tech enemy, then she's probably going to take quite a lot of damage. She does support all allies, regardless of whether they're extreme, although obviously I think every Terrifying Conquerors unit is extreme. She has a high chance to give an extra 10% attack and defense as 2 separate procs, and then if you are on 50% or less HP once per fight, you get a 50% heal and an extra 50% attack and defense for that turn. For extreme class allies. So that can be an actual saver in like a run, whether it's a no item attempt or not. Getting that free heal can be massive, plus the fact that it's then giving an extra 50% attack and defense. I mean, for reference, in one of my showcase videos, I think when I got into level 10 links, the AGL Makokabara on rotation with her, when she got that buff, he then hit like a 10 million attack stat or something ridiculous. So that is obviously very helpful. You just have to be careful because she herself is quite fragile. So next up we have Metal Realdo. I thought I'd bring him in here as an honourable mention because he greatly raises defense on super as well as lowering the enemy's attack. Obviously he supports GT bosses, which there aren't really any of. He attacks effective against all types and high chance to stun is only when there's a GT Heroes enemy, which there aren't any of, but he also recovers HP at the end of the turn. So he's greatly raising defense on super, he's lowering the enemy's attack. Overall his defense is pretty solid, and then he gives you a little bit of HP recovery if he took a hit in that turn. So he's only an honourable mention, but he still is pretty solid. He's not obviously not supporting anyone, but he can work out pretty well. He's another unit that has big bad bosses, so good for linking up with other people. Then we have the free-to-play version of Toa, I guess, the Demon Goddess Poutine. She doesn't have a heal, but she raises defense on super. She has a medium chance to stun. She gets more attack and defense per crossover ally, so if you really only want to bring her if you are bringing a bunch of other heroes units. But because we've already talked about having stunners and sealers, she gets an additional 70% attack when the enemy is stunned or sealed. She also gives crossover allies some support, and she seals and lowers the enemy's attack by 20% on attack. So she's raising her own defense, has a chance to stun, but then also seals and lowers attack of the enemy that she's attacking. Now, she is a free-to-play unit, so it says it like even max rainbow, she's only got 7,200 defense, but she's pretty solid as a free-to-play pick. And then finally, I thought I'd include as an honourable mention Physical Cooler. Physical Cooler is just a solid unit. He does need time to build up to max, so obviously a Super Battle Road stage is not his most ideal habitat, but he is still a very, very solid unit. So, if we go back to the list, I did mention them briefly when I was talking about Frieza's leader skill, but we didn't really talk about the Ginyu Force. Now, on Global, we obviously don't have the Easy A for the physical one, so neither of the LRs are particularly useful. But in terms of the Easy A Ginyu Force members, Ginyu is pretty strong by himself, so he could be worth bringing. This Frieza we didn't talk about because he's only good when there's a Goku family enemy, which, as we said at the beginning, that's only in one fight. So probably not really worth bringing the rest of the time. Now, Jace is an interesting one because he does have the Scouter effect as well as providing a little bit of support. So out of all the potential Ginyu Force members, I definitely think he's probably the most valuable one to run. Raccoon can be pretty good defensively as well. Guldo's defense is okay, but he does also have that stun and attack lowering, so Ginyu Force units actually will be quite useful in here as well. Tech Transforming Frieza can be good, but I've soured on him a bit recently because in Extreme Super Battle Road, even after like a double super, his defense isn't really great. But he is a solid unit, gives you heals, can put out a lot of damage. For people who don't care about no item runs, obviously he's going to be a very powerful unit. So that's going to be it for my top picks and honourable mentions. As I said at the beginning, if you think I missed out on anyone or I missed out on an aspect of a unit that I did talk about but I should have talked about more, let me know down below in the comment section. And let me know what your team is going to look like for this stage. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.